Hello.
Hey there, Jen.
Hey, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I logged on about 5 to 3 and stayed on for a while. I'm like, okay, I don't think anybody's going to show. So then I talked to Fago. He's like, oh, hold on, I'll call. I mean, yeah. So can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah.
Yep.
How are things going for you today?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to meet you too. So,
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your show.
I actually have two shows. The one I do is about my traumatic brain injury, where I talk about basically my struggles or anything that goes on that relates to a brain injury that I've been treated with, stuff like that. Basically stuff that people find useful about a traumatic brain injury that they didn't know, or stuff that caregivers had no idea about, or just the general public. Because even after you know somebody with a brain injury, you tend to not know anything at all. And
Yes.
the other one I do is just an interview show because I interview people who, I mean, either the triathlon related, brain injury related, something brain related. They always have something to offer to other people that they didn't know.
Yep. Well, that's great. What a great thing you're doing.
Okay.
Now, what was your brain injury?
Left temporal lobe. So
Okay.
a lot of it
What
was
happened?
memory, math, emotion control, and a lot of other small things. And I also have vision issues.
Were you in an accident? Did you fall?
I was hit by an SUV. Um, he was going about 40, 50 miles an hour. I was going about 20. I was riding to work. I'm a former architect.
Oh boy. Well, I can relate because I myself have been in the exact same spot.
Oh, yeah? Tell me about it.
A year ago, a year and a half ago, I was out for a run, my morning run before the kiddos go to school. And in the middle of a four-way stop, there were kids waiting for their bus and parents at the the bus stop. And I was on a really great minute mile. I was on target for 7:20.
Nice.
Uh, I was so excited pretty much every day. And it was this, I'm approaching the stop sign. Again, I'm crossing the street. And next thing I know it, I'm flying up in the air and rolling over the hood of somebody's car. And as I got hit and I'm flying in the air, I'm saying to myself, it was literally like slow motion. Wait a minute. I just got hit by a car. And then my head hit the cement or the ground, my elbows hit. And the next thing I know, I woke up and they had me in a device, an emergency or ambulance, and they were taking me to the hospital. And apparently I had probably 20 to 30 people. I mean, moms and dads, people, kids. They're like, oh, from what the statements, it's kind of funny looking back because some of the statements, one mom goes, oh no, that poor lady, she just got hit by a car. Yeah, I was on the second story of my house and I looked down and I thought, whoa, that girl just got hit by a car. And I'm thinking, yeah, that was me. That was Jen. Woo. And
Yeah,
I
so
said, yeah,
mine was
except for the concussion and blacked out. And I ended up a year later getting surgery. I had 3 discs replaced, and my discs are space were so small they actually had to use child size. And it's interesting because my father has Parkinson's, which is a brain disease, and I represent Michael J. Fox, his foundation, as well as the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center, which is all about brain diseases, concussions, ALS, MS, Alzheimer's, dementia, Lewy bodies, Parkinson's, just everything with the brain. And I thought, not only am I a caregiver, an adult child loving my father who has a brain disease, but I myself, a single mom caring for my children, self-caring. I'm a caregiver for myself, who's, battling this brain trauma. So I can relate to both capacities, loving someone who has the disease, that the trajectory of that disease does not have a cure. And then also being hit and having the brain trauma and having to self-care myself to understand the change in me. And thank God that I have a really, really good network of safe, confident mentors in my corner that I can reach out to as lifelines to say, hey, Jen, I've got your blind spot. This is what I'm noticing. Just want to make sure that you're, just so you're clear on what we're observing. Because if I didn't have good observation in my blind spots, I could not move forward in becoming the best version of me. And so I think as a caregiver, whatever that role is, whether it's for yourself or you're an adult child caring for your parent or a family member, or you're a sibling, an older sibling caring for a younger that might have something like that, it's really important that you have people to turn to, that you get your support. Because at the end of the day, where is your support system? Who's patting you on the back? Who's saying you can do this? Don't give up. Because when the lights go down and everybody's tucked into bed, there's a quiet thing called anxiety and depression. And it's very, very lonely. I think you and I and many millions of people all over the world had just a little taste of what that is like during quarantine. That's their life, especially if you're a low income senior and you're by yourself at home. Who gets the caregiver up every day and says, that a girl or that a boy, hang in there. You are the one that makes sure they take their medicine, they have their bellies full of food, that tuck them into bed and kiss their heads and make sure that they're there for their doctor appointments and talks to them and gives them observations. But where's their support? So now insurance companies are recognizing the caregivers as the second patient. And so they are now coming up with support groups and putting them in their facilities. And it's so important that we all understand what the common denominator is, and that's how to give hope and comfort for those going through the disease, but also how to give hope and comfort back to the caregiver.
Yeah, my situation with my caregiver, it didn't quite, I was engaged to someone at the time. Didn't quite work out in the end. It was a little bit too much for her to handle. But for the most part, like I handled all my medical stuff on my own. I handled all the legal issues because that still hasn't ended, and it's not going to because of the court's backlog from COVID. So, I mean, I handled all these major issues myself. So, even though she was there, it wasn't quite the support that I needed. I was the one always doing my own meds. I was pretty self-reliant on stuff, but, once she wasn't there, I didn't really have anybody. My parents lived 4 states away. They couldn't really help me. So.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that when you have a trusting bond, loyalty for caregivers, if you are the type of person that doesn't have it in them, fill in the blank. Because you can't tell me, as I speak at caregiver conferences, number one question is, how can I be a good caregiver? There's a million ways to be a good friend. There's a million ways to be a good mom. And there's a million ways to be a good caregiver. So you can't tell me that somebody is incapable of caring at all. Okay, well, Jennifer, how about this? My caregivers, they live in different states. Well, thank goodness for technology, because if it wasn't, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. Well, you know, I would love to do cooking. I'd love to bring a meal over, but you know, I live so, really, there's a thing called Uber Eats now. Send a note, can't be there, just thinking about you. Text them. Well, you know, I'm an adult child and I've got my own family now. I'm raising my own kids, trying to build my own company. And my dad never was there when I was going to football practices and never showed up to any of my games. But now, you know, he's got this and he expects me to stop my life and, you know, help it. Really? So how do you let go of emotional history and meet the person where they're at? The dad who was 30 raising kids, who was selfish, and now is battling a brain disease that's going to take him out. You mean to say that you can't find an inch in your heart to at least say, you know what, Dad, I'm still battling some emotional trauma from the history. I'm dealing with it on my own, but just to let you know, here is a thought. Here's a note. Here's a text. Here's a picture of the kids. Whatever it is, there's a million ways to be a good caregiver. So my heart is compassionately hurting for you when I hear those things, because I don't know what went into the situation that you experienced, but it might be a little bit of a factor of selfishness on the caregiver side. And it's really unfortunate, but honestly, between you and I, you would not want that kind of selfishness caring for you. It's got to come from the heart, man. It can't come from out of loyalty or just so I can check off a box. It's got to, and if it's not from her or him, whoever, maybe it's from someone you didn't even think about. You and I right now are trauma bonding.
Mm-hmm.
We're sharing our stories. Those stories are what get us through the day. And those are so incredibly healing and so motivational. And motivation's a heck of a thing, you know? It drives the factor. You and I both do it. First thing in the morning, you check your phone, you go right on social media, you check the comments. Those comments are stories. They're stories that people are sharing with you because they get it. Those are the stories you want to embrace in your corner, not the ones that feel like, oh, I've got a job to do. If this is a job, then we need to move on, because I don't want it to be hard. Now, if you're not capable because you have other things, I get that, but have an adult conversation. This is what I can do. I can fill in the blank, but I'm incapable right now because I'm dealing with whatever it is for myself. And we can negotiate. I get that. We all are going through something. But you mean to tell me that that person wasn't in it for a little bit, or is it really something a little deeper?
You know, she when she left me, she said, "I can't be someone's caregiver. I can't do this for the rest of my life." And I came to think that it's like, well, I feel like you've overestimated your role here. I mean,
No, it
I
has nothing to do with caregiving.
yeah,
She was finding a way out. I went through the same thing.
well,
And it just comes down to one word, and it's selfishness. And that's okay. Maybe that's where she's at, he's at, whoever's at that moment in life. Let him go, figure it out, but bring in some good caregiver support in your corner.
well, she was, you know, for several months, she was keeping me at arm's reach, like standing in the doorway. And it would have been better for me, either you're in or you're out, but where you're at actually was very painful to me, you know, because it feels like you're living in your house with someone who doesn't love you.
Yes. Yep. I get it. Well, I'm sorry about that. So, yeah.
But, you know, I have lasted through COVID and 7 months on my own, so I think it's not so bad.
Yeah. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, so teamgateway2acure.org is my foundation. and people can go online and learn a little bit more about caregiver support. It's actually kind of down right now. We're rebranding the foundation, and I'm actually getting ready to fly out to visit with the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center on the Burroughs Neurological Institute in a couple of days. So yeah, I'm really excited. My dad is actually doing pretty well, and yeah, I'm really happy.
You know, the thing about Muhammad Ali, he was a great fighter, you know, great shit talker. But I think the one thing that people always overlook, and now they see this feeble old man who has been crippled by this horrible disease, but they always seem to forget of like the true person he was at heart, like what he did to Joe Frazier. You know, you see the man he is now, and he's not the man he was 40, 50 years ago. I mean, it's a different world. Like, you know, your grandparents, maybe they, you know, when they raised your parents or whatever, they were different people. And now, you know, it's just, I guess.
Yeah, and then many people don't know that Muhammad Ali's legacy was caregiver support. You know, before he passed on with Parkinson's, he wanted to focus on what caregiver support looks like. And so now the Parkinson Center brings the telemedicine to the home. They bring the resources to the home for the caregivers to stay in the home with their loved ones, so their loved ones don't have to be out of the home.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that sounds like, you know, like basically one of the reasons why we need to keep funding Meals on Wheels too. I think I lost your sound.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, so how did you get tied up in foundations? I mean,
well, my father has Parkinson's.
Oh, I get that part, but like, did they come out?
Came off the NFL field, and I wanted to use that platform to raise awareness for Parkinson's, and so I collaborated with Michael J. Fox to raise money for research, and then along the way, I noticed how important caregiver support was. And so I met with the Muhammad Ali people and became really great friends with Lonnie, his widow. And she instructed me on how impact the caregivers are, the ones that are behind the scenes that give the hope and comfort back to the ones that are battling the brain diseases.
And, you know, I think that part of the reason why my relationship didn't work out, I don't say you have to embrace the role of caregiver, but if you're going through it alone, you don't really know what you're doing. You don't know who to look towards. You know, she should have been coming to some of those brain injury support groups with me because, you know, survivors aren't the only people sitting there. There are caregivers there too. And my mom said, go find yourself a Sherpa, you know, somebody who's had a brain injury for the last 20 years. And they'll guide you through doctors, all this stuff. And you'll learn that. Well, there are people who are caregivers for the last 20, 25 years that could have told her a lot of information. It might have changed the outcome, but, you know, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, well, and it's not just brain trauma. It's caregivers in anyone. I mean, you could have diabetes, you could have cancer, you can have whatever it is. What happens if you had your tonsils out? Well, she's got to be caregiver for a couple of days. I mean, it's kind of an immature excuse, but I mean, if we have an adult conversation, was it really about caring for you? Because isn't a relationship about caring?
Yeah. And it's funny how you say it's an immature excuse because she was actually 8 years older than I am. You figure I would have been the one who was a little bit immature.
Well, yeah. So anyway.
So yeah, I mean, you know, I think what you're doing is great. I mean, you sound like a very busy person being a single mom and essentially running 3 foundations.
Yeah, well, it's one. It's Team Gateway to a Cure. And so when you go, have you gone on the website?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't researched in as depth that I would have liked to, but I've been there.
Yeah, so it's, you know, you can see that I raised funds and awareness for Michael.
Yeah, I like Michael a lot. He's a great actor. I like that he came back to the world and kind of embraced his role and playing Parkinson's characters on TV.
Raise awareness for the caregivers.
I mean, I think it's definitely great.
Right around 1999, right around the same time my dad was found out that he had Parkinson's. So yeah, so the NFL has been nothing but supportive, and I've been really happy with how everything has turned out, and I'm really looking forward to the new rebranding with the foundation and just really raising awareness for Parkinson's and all brain diseases. So yeah, you can go on the website teamgatewaytoacure.org, and if people want to learn more about what we do and how to get involved, as well as how many different ways you can be a good caregiver.
Yeah, I would, all these different, I wear a lot of different hats doing what I do. I would love to one day kind of push that towards, I don't know so much as being a foundation, but kind of being a way to raise funds to maybe divert to other people's foundations, Rather, I don't know if I could take on all the responsibility of that, but I still think I could raise funds to make a difference in somebody else's foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. What sort of things are you doing now?
Can you say that again? You kind of, there was a little bit of a lag and it dragged you out.
What is your podcast?
Yeah, so
your podcast, is it educational? Can you hear me?
yeah.
It's just on brain trauma.
Well, my show about my brain injury is strictly about brain injury, but I also talk. It's so closely tied to me being a triathlete that it's basically I'm a brain injury triathlete. Separate the two in that show. And the interview show I do, it's I've interviewed Jim McMahon because everybody knows Jim McMahon has serious brain trauma. Everybody's he's very big on the concussion awareness. So there's people all over if you're related to brain injuries or if you're related to triathlons, or if you just have an interesting story to tell. You can learn something from everybody, and I definitely think that I could tell my story, but I could share other people's too. Because if you have a soapbox, then you definitely have somebody's ear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so is there anything else that you would like to ask?
No, I think you've been pretty good. You've definitely, shared light on the caregiver aspect, which, being the survivor, it's really hard to empathize with because, you're kind of wrapped up in your own problems that you don't realize what they go through and that, they support. It's kind of like how, counselors have people they talk to after their job to kind of decompress. Well, caregivers need some kind of support network too. They can't be all in the buck stops with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, so teamgatewaytoacure.org is the website. And again, you can go online and learn more about what caregiver support looks like, as well as if you want to leave a message or a question, I'll definitely answer it. I answer every email and anything that comes through. So yeah, I'm also on social media, Team Gateway, Jennifer Cobb on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, teamgatewaytoacure.org or Jennifer Cobb.
Yeah, and I'll definitely link your website and social media to the video. Just keep your name out there more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for talking with me. I appreciate taking your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me know if you'd like me to come on again and answer questions and to any of your, listeners, and happy to open up the dialogue and talk more and more about this, because I think it's really important for people who are going through this process on both ends, both sides, that they are supported and educated and understand that they're not alone.
Yeah, that's one thing I found that I told my fiance, I feel misunderstood. And by that, I meant I feel like I was on an island, and you kind of have to both be on the same page. You have to find some way to translate, so to feel like you're not lost in translation. And
yeah,
it's a difficult thing.
Yes, exactly. Well, good luck with everything. And again, let's keep in touch, and happy to come back on the show and talk in more detail about, the foundation and caregiver support.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have like some kind of new event or something new you're trying to launch, by all let me know. We'll do it.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks
All right.
for having me.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.